Welcome aboard the Salem Podcast Network, by the way, Josh.
Thank you. It's an honor, Chris. It's a historic brand. I don't have to be the one to tell you that, obviously. I mean, this is a brand that goes back many decades. Salem's values are our values in the Josh Hammer Show. Your values, Chris, I believe, are our values on the Josh Hammer Show, and it's amazing to call you not just a friend, but also a colleague.
Now, you heard, we had a couple of very interesting calls that I'm going to throw both of these at you. Let me start with where Bill just left off in Kentucky. Can you react to the John Bolton situation yesterday? I think the transmitting of classified information is probably even more severe than the possession of classified information. I know different politicians have gotten caught up in classified versus declassified possession. Transmitting it, though, is a different deal.
Yeah, so look, there's a few things to be said. There's the old legal axiom, the old slogan that a grand jury would indict a ham sandwich, right? So, I mean, the fact that there is an indictment, I would encourage people to, on first blush, to not get too far ahead of your skis. Grand jury indictment percentages are typically very high, especially in high-profile cases like this. Having said that, and I try not to get into the gossip mongering business there. Having said that, Chris, I have personally heard for many years from many of my sources, from many folks who work in and around the government, in and around the national security apparatus in D.C. I have heard many well-meaning folks who have openly speculated to me that John Bolton is leaking all sorts of classified information to try to push his agenda. So I am probably one of the least surprised people to actually see this indictment come down. So it's kind of a few things can be true at once. On the one hand, let's wait and find out a little bit more corroborated information. On the other hand, this very much verifies a lot of my priors, a lot of what I've been hearing for years. It's also a lot easier, of course, to get an indictment than it is to ultimately get some sort of conviction. That goes true not just for John Bolton, but when it comes to Jim Comey as well, a lot of these high-profile indictments there. But if what is being alleged is true, and again, I have anecdotal reason for believing that there is something to this indictment there, then John Bolton certainly deserves what he's likely going to get, Chris.
Meanwhile, this Mondani guy in New York, I was slack-jawed to hear him actually demand Cuomo kiss the ring of Islam last night in the debate. We played the clip earlier. I won't rehash it other than to say, and you saw it, you've heard it, and people haven't, go find it or listen earlier to the show today. He basically says he's mad at Cuomo for not having visited a mosque during his tenure as governor, and this should disqualify him from being mayor of New York. When exactly did we start requiring our elected leaders to go visit any religious institutions to win an election?
Yeah, I believe the word that comes to mind for this, to kind of take a slightly different religious cultural tradition that is my own, the word that comes to mind is chutzpah. I mean, this is tremendous chutzpah, right? I mean, to see someone like this say you have to kiss the ring, as you correctly note, of literally any religion. I mean, can you imagine if there were a Jewish candidate for mayor who
Josh,
said,
I said that earlier, and Lord knows if anybody knows, you know, if a Jew said, when was the last temple you visited? It said that in a debate. Can you imagine what you'd hear today?
Yeah, I mean, social media would be up in flames over how the Jews control this, the Jews control that. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But I mean, this is also New York City. I mean, this is also where the 9/11 attacks took place. This was a whole massive debate just a couple of decades ago over the Ground Zero Mosque. I mean, I'm a native of the New York suburbs, Chris. I remember this debate very well. So for Mamdani, two decades, give or take, after the peak of the Ground Zero Mosque debate, to come in there and say, why have you not kissed the ring by visiting a mosque? It says, I think, all you need to know about just how much New York City has changed. It's not just New York City, though, Chris. I mean, I saw this clip maybe a month ago, give or take. I'm sure you saw it, too. This clip out of Dearborn, Michigan. A concerned Christian citizen comes to talk to at the town council meeting because he objects to the proposal of the town council to rename a street in Dearborn over a dead Hezbollah jihadi. And the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, yells at him and says, you have a right to live here, but we look forward to the day that you leave Dearborn because your values are not our values. You are an Islamophobe. And, I kind of saw this clip, Chris, and I said, look, if they're telling us that objections to naming streets over dead Hezbollah jihadis makes one an Islamophobe, then you're probably going to get a lot more Islamophobes based on that very definition of the word there. So it's kind of a self-defeating argument as well.
This guy Mondani said not only, should Cuomo be apologetic and withdraw from the race because he hasn't visited a mosque, he also said that per international law, You know, as the mayor of New York, as far as he's concerned, if Benjamin Netanyahu were to land here, he should be arrested. And of course, Martha McCallum asked him earlier this week about Hamas. He had absolutely nothing to say. Went stone cold silent. Said, I'm ambivalent. I'm out of that. I mean, the guy's an Islamist, Josh. He's an Islamist. Like, let's just call it what it is, and fine, let's deal with it head on. Yes?
Yes, and his wife, his girlfriend, I can't remember whether they're married or not. I believe it's his wife. His wife posted a long post on social media bewailing the death of a well-known Hamas propagandist who was nicknamed Mr. Fafo. This was a big deal on social media about a year and a half, 2 years ago. There was this Palestinian Arab character in Gaza who simultaneously was appearing as a nurse, as a journalist, as a cameraman there. He was going all throughout the country. He was literally one of Hamas's leading propagandists there. He was in all these videos there, and he apparently has been killed. And Zohar Mamdani's wife put out a very, very lengthy post just bemoaning the death of this very well-known Hamas propagandist. Look, Zohar Mamdani, to me, Chris, is the singular embodiment of what is oftentimes referred to as the red-green axis, the red-green alliance, this alliance of convenience between the forces of Marxism and Islamism, which on paper share literally nothing in common whatsoever, but they do share a seething hatred of the United States of America, a seething hatred of Christianity, Judaism, and Western civilization more broadly. I think the Barack Obama 2008 intersectional coalition laid the groundwork for this. Zohar Mamdani, in many ways, really just Barack Obama 2.0. He's an even more aggressive, even more culturally radical, even more anti-Western figure. And I really just bewail the fact that New York City might have let this man be.
That's exactly right. He is. He's Barack Obama all over again. Slick talking, youthful looking, very interesting, sort of exotic. It's Obama all over again, but more blatantly Islamic in nature than Obama was overtly. And Josh, you have come under withering attack, as I was saying in the first segment. There are people who purport to be conservatives who are attacking you. You came on this show, interestingly, and talked to me about the relationship you had with Charlie, and then some text exchange came out in which you were identified as part of the text exchange with Charlie. And some of the most vile stuff I've ever heard came out suggesting that you are somehow in some roundabout or direct way tied to the murder of Charlie. And I would just love for you to address that on this show.
Sure. I mean, Chris, what is there to be said, for someone who has gone so far down the conspiratorial rabbit hole? I think would be a very polite way of saying I have some very more charged language. That's probably better for off air. But I mean, what is there to be said about someone who has gone so far down the rabbit hole that she is ready to highly imply that a friend of Charlie Kirk's was involved in the assassination? I mean, there are no words in the English language that come to mind that are quite fit to describe this sort of salacious innuendo. I mean, we can call it loathsome, we can call it beneath contempt, demonic. I mean, these are some of the words that come to mind. Chris, the worst part about all of this is that it went down when I was actually offline. It went down when I was offline for about 49 hours last week for the beginning of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, which many Christians know as the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of the Tabernacles. And one of the amazing parts about the holiday of Sukkot is that if you look at Leviticus chapter 23, we are literally commanded to rejoice. In the Hebrew, it would say Ziman Simchatenu. It is a time of our rejoicing. It is the Jewish festival that is most intimately associated with happiness and just pure, unadulterated celebration. Quite fitting, actually, given kind of the geopolitical juxtaposition of the release of the hostages from Gaza. I say all that, Chris, because I could not think of a starker divide between what myself and my family were doing in celebrating this Jewish holiday, in celebrating the sovereignty of God Almighty, in celebrating just the joy of life itself, and just posing that with just horrific, horrible things that were being said about me, and increasingly, Chris, that are being said about many public-facing, prominent, columnists, podcasters who happen to be Jewish, really all throughout the United States. It's really, really dangerous stuff there. I mean, Candace Owens is Go ahead, sir.
Oh, well, no, I just want to say, Josh, that as for this show and as for your host here, and I want to be very clear with this audience and anybody who wonders about it. Now, you can't know for sure. I understand that. I'll swear on a stack of Bibles as a Christian, and I will tell you, I am under no obligation to host Josh Hammer or anybody else on this show. I welcome him here because he should be allowed to come and speak to these godforsaken charges that are just outrageous and irresponsible. And quite frankly, I'm getting a little sick and tired of people on our side suggesting, that the biblical relationship to Israel is somehow the equivalent of never criticizing the government of Israel. And Josh, I know you don't believe that. I know Charlie didn't believe that. The holy relationship to Israel is different than the current government of Israel. They are different. Charlie believed that. I believe that. I think you believe that. Yes?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yes.
And so it's just, to me, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So the idea that Charlie was frustrated that some people were leaning on him to not allow voices who were upset with Israeli government decisions on you know, I mean, you and I talked about the debate you had with Dave Smith. Was Charlie being pressured to not host those voices? I suppose he was. He says he was. Would you agree with that in terms of his pushback on that, Josh?
So, look, Charlie was a friend, obviously, as you and I discussed at length, Chris. I mean, we were in pretty much daily contact over the final year and a half of his life. You know, this now infamous WhatsApp chat that Candace Owens leaked to the world. This WhatsApp chat was started by Charlie Kirk, actually. Charlie started this chat. He named this chat Saving Civilization, actually, for the very simple reason that he was passionate about Western civilization. And this is why we became friends, Chris, because I, as an observant Jew, he is a devout Christian, we were of like mind on the imperative of the biblical inheritance in all that Western civilization means and all that the United States means. Now, he was able to separate between that and a case-by-case, policy-by-policy approach to very specific conflicts in the Middle East. So he had become at times critical, for instance, at least privately, of Prime Minister Netanyahu. But he was critical of specific tactics. He was never critical of Israel's need to actually finish the job against Hamas. He was never critical of the imperative to actually bring home the hostages there. And he also, Charlie, was of course the head of Turning Point USA. And Turning Point is an extraordinarily influential and powerful organization on the right. And he had all sorts of donors who had all sorts of interests there. It is true that he had some pro-Israel donors who were not happy with the fact that Tucker Carlson, among others, was still speaking there. That's their right to exert pressure as donors, and it's Charlie's right to say, forget you, I'm running my own organization.
Josh, we're going to continue this conversation for days, weeks, and months ahead. The Josh Hammer Show is our podcast network partner now, and we're glad to have you. Thanks for clearing it up here. You're always welcome back, Josh Hammer. Thank you for your time today.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.